Hey, well, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 61 of the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast. It is me, your host, and I am not joined today by the ping to my pong, Mr. Samuel David Camp. I am, in fact, joined by the one, the only Naya Carlson. How are you doing this morning, Naya?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right, but we probably need to address the elephant in the room, or maybe the woolly mammoth. Choose a hairier creature for Mr. Sam, because you're not, in fact, Sam Camp. So, kind of one of the changes that will be happening at the Faith and Pop Culture Podcast is that just with different work responsibilities and various other things, Sam is going to be backing off of the podcast. We've been doing this thing together for a while, but he's not like going anywhere. He'll probably still be popping in to the podcast. We'll pull him in. So it's not like he's gone anywhere, but he won't be regular on the podcast anymore. And that lofty seat, the throne, the responsibility, the burden, perhaps, will be filled by Naya going forward, which is awesome because Naya's awesome. And I think has some interesting perspectives, and just I think as a woman, as someone a bit younger, just someone from a different background, film student, I think you'll have a lot to bring to this show. So I'm excited to initiate you into the podcast and have some great conversations about faith and pop culture.
Thanks.
But those Sam fans, take heart that he will appear from time to time. But why don't we just jump right into it? Because there's a couple of interesting topics that I wanted us to kind of dig into that are kind of buzzworthy topics that I think also have some very interesting kind of like general application as far as this. What does it mean? Like how do, as Christians, how do we live in this world? How do we live in the art world? How do we create? And the first one is involving kind of a viral story that was sparked by, I think, a TikTok or a social media reel from the musical artist Forrest Frank. So now, why don't you kind of set the stage a bit for like what is why is everyone talking about award shows and Forrest Frank?
Yeah, for sure. So Forrest Frank recently came out with his conviction about award shows. So he says, as a Christian artist, I dress kind of like the world. I kind of look like the world. My music can kind of sound like the world. So where's the line in the sand drawn? I'm convicted, personally, that a line I can draw is that I will not receive a trophy for something that is from Jesus and for Jesus. The trophy is that my name is listed in the book of life and I get to have eternal life. What good is a piece of metal going to do compared to that? No, this is not a refusal to be a light in dark places. This is a refusal to go on stages and get awards. I already got the greatest award of all time. And there, of course, has been some positive and negative responses. Solomon, is it Buki?
I think so. Yeah.
Solomon Buki, well, sorry, Solomon, if that was incorrect. Solomon Buki, who's a Christian podcaster, he affirmed Forrest Frank, saying, Forrest Frank, you're a breath of fresh air. I've had these conversations for the longest time. Is it ministry or industry? Who determines the best worship music? God bless you, man. And then on the other side of the spectrum, country star Jelly Roll says, won't receive a trophy for something from Jesus for Jesus, but will take the profits from something from Jesus for Jesus. Maybe I'm missing something here, LOL. So, Daniel, do you think it's wrong for Christians to celebrate earthly career success? Or what are your thoughts on Forrest Frank's conviction?
Yeah, because this is I don't know, this thing seems to have struck like at least for me, because I'm not necessarily a huge Forrest Frank guy, and I don't listen to his music a whole lot. I obviously know his songs and know he's wildly successful right now, but I do feel like this touches on some I don't know, I think important things for Christians to think about just as far as like how do we like where is sort of that line? I would say too, like I think the Bible is very clear about like personal convictions and that we need to stay true to those convictions. And so like if this is Frank's conviction, like then that's his conviction. Like I have no issue, I'm not gonna like force him to go to an award show, or like I think he is perfectly in his right to do as he feels like God is leading him to do. And this is obviously something that he feels, and it seems like I don't know if you followed a whole lot of his career the last couple of years and stuff. Like it seems like this is not like he woke up one day and felt uncomfortable. Like it seems like this has been like a conversation he's been having and thinking about going back a couple of years. So I don't think this is just some knee jerk like, hey, I think I'll just not go to award shows. Like I think this very much is like a personal um conviction. So,
Mhm.
so, so I think just to start like that, obviously he is totally in his right for that. I do think though, like by kind of being a public figure and then like kind of publicly releasing his thoughts on this and like kind of his reasoning and stuff does also open it up to like a conversation. That this isn't just like, if he just held these convictions on his own, that's one thing. By I think making this video and kind of not preaching his views, but like very sharing his views and articulating the arguments for them and all that. Like I think it is perfectly valid for Christians to sort of dialogue with, and I think it's a tricky one, but I think it does reflect just the uncertainty I think of Christians when it comes to like humility. Like, what does that actually
Mhm.
mean? Because I think we all know like we should be humble as Christians. Like that humility is a good thing, pride's a bad thing. Um, but sort of the question of just like what does humility mean? Like, does that mean that that we need to sort of keep our head down at all times, and anytime there's any attention directed to us, we got to like just point to the heavens, and it's not about me, and like like that it's almost like inherently sinful to be recognized. Like, like is it a bad thing for people to give awards to success if that person's a Christian, or is it just, um, is that sort of pride? And I do think that, again, I've never heard of Jelly Roll. That's a great country star name, but I do think obviously he seems like he has a bone to pick, but I do think that it does draw. There is some valid critique in that as far as just sort of the industry and like, it's like, well, we're humble, but like, we're obviously not doing. It's still a career. Like there still is that line between like he might not get an award, but he's still, this isn't
Mhm.
purely a act of worship. Like he's making his living doing this, and I'm sure he's making a very good living doing this. And so there is some sort of it's kind of some messiness in there. What were your sort of initial thoughts though? Because I know, and I think you probably are more of a you're more familiar with his music than I am, but like,
Yeah.
what are your initial? Because I think there's several layers that we can get into for this, but like as you kind of saw the video and some of that, like, what were your kind of first takeaways?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely I think in the middle. I love Forrest Frank. Like he's one of my like top artists if I want to listen to some um worship music that's maybe not a hymn or something. Like his song Up is great. I was down but now I'm up. Up like my name's Lazarus. So I think he's pretty great and he's really fun. He's a song like churning machine. He pops out a single like every other week. It's crazy. Um but to Jelly Roll's point, like we don't know what he's doing with his money. It's not a sin to be rich as long as you know that your treasure is in heaven. And he could be like anonymously donating maybe to help build homeless shelters. Like maybe we could know that, but I don't think that we do. So I don't know. I think that being a public figure, of course, for him is going to be super difficult because people are always going to critique everything that you're doing. But he already is different from what I've seen is very different from other Christian artists, other public figures. When he was at the award show, I don't know if it was this year or last year, but someone on the red carpet was asking him, like, who are you most excited to see tonight? And everyone else was like, oh, Forrest Frank, oh, Kane, like all of these different names. And he goes, oh, my wife. Like, that was his response, was his wife, because she was in a dress, in a beautiful dress. He was like, I'm so excited to see my wife. Like, and I see him consistently always trying to pursue excellence and pursue Christ in all of the different, like when he has a conviction he sticks to it publicly, which is really cool, and he's always trying to reset his maybe not reset is the right word, but I'm going to use it. He's always trying to reset his boundaries to prevent himself from maybe becoming egotistical or prideful, and maybe um, just making sure that he's not stepping over the line in the sand that he mentioned.
Yeah, and I think
So,
too, I would say too, because I actually read the quotes from his video before I saw the video, And I think if you've only read the quotes, I encourage people to go check out the video because there is I think you do lose some of the tone. Like from the quotes, they came across a little bit more like not holier than thou, but more like preachy. Like you sort of lose
Yeah,
some of the like, this is
definitely.
my honest personal thing I'm convicted by, and it's more like a conversational sharing with his audience, which you get in the video. Like you kind of get some of
Mhm.
that humility where the quotes, I think you lose uh, a little bit of some of that. And I think I'm with you. I'm somewhat in the middle as far as like Christians should be humble. And I think there are a lot of Christians, public figures on a big platform that could use a bit more Forrest Frank in their life. As far as, I've met some of these Christians, that just, I think just being that famous and success, it does breed a sense of pride that I think Christians need to be actively guarding against. Kind of the other side of that for me,
Yeah.
though, is that like I think the Bible talks about humility. I think the Bible also talks about like excellence, and you see that various places. You see, in the Old Testament and the New Testament of this idea that a Christian, run the race to win the race. Discipline yourself. Don't settle for less. There's even the word like every time it mentions like the builders of the temple or the tabernacle. Like I think the words like of high skill or excellence are used like 10 times in that passage. Like it's very much like excellence matters too. It's not just, that you're sort of humble. And I think Christians sometimes have a hard time with that part. Like in some ways it's almost easier to sort of be humble. And there is sort of an irony, and I don't think that Forrest Frank is trying to do this. I don't want to
Mhm.
attribute it to him, but there is sort of a sense where humility is sort of the Christian version of elevating yourself. Like, I think more
Oh,
people are
yeah.
talking about, like kind of like sort of the super Christian persona. And again, I'm not necessarily saying Forrest Frank is doing that, but
Mhm.
where it's like by being so humble and giving this up, like
I
that
have
sort of
a
like, like that sort of fills up
yeah.
your, now all these Christians are praising him for how humble he is. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's sort of the way, or giving. You can do that for any of the Christian things. Like even sort of that going extreme that way can actually, you know, be a way to elevate yourself. Like, look at
Yeah.
how I'm so humble that I will even give up worldly success, and you will all see me do that, and I'm so great for that. Like, and and
Yeah.
again, I don't think he's doing that, but I think there is sort of a sense of Christians don't always know how to. I don't know. Like it's almost like we feel uncomfortable with excellence, and I think there's also a danger in that. Like there's a danger in
Mhm.
pride. There's also a danger of Christians that just kind of settle for less, and they don't want to celebrate, like great art or success or things that are good
There's a
because
balance for
we're
sure.
sort of scared. And I
Yeah.
think of and I don't want to use the verses out of context, but like Luke 14, where Jesus is talking about pride and stuff to the Pharisees, and talks about like going to the wedding banquet, and says like don't go sit at a high place because if someone, higher, more esteemed than you comes, it's embarrassing to be moved down to the low table.
Mhm.
Better to go sit at the lowest table and then have the host come and like see you as invite you to the high table and like let someone else
Yeah.
elevate you, which I mean is just a good life lesson. But I
And
do think
also, like yeah, also, it's, like, it's cool when if you're at the wedding banquet, like, not forgetting the fact that you're at the wedding banquet too. I think that maybe could be compared to, like to excellence, but being humble in excellence,
yeah,
if
and
that
it's kind of
makes sense.
and sort of my takeaway from that passage is like don't elevate yourself, but it's not sort of the other layer to that is like it's not necessarily wrong to be elevated. Like as long if the
Yeah.
host comes and they elevate you and they affirm what you're doing is good, like there's
Mhm.
honor in that. Just you don't be the one to go sit at that high table. And I sort of take I don't know I think there is some parallels to obviously Jesus wasn't talking about like music awards banquets and ceremonies and stuff, but I think there is a sense that I think in scripture you could make a case that like, there's nothing wrong with being elevated and honored by others for the excellence that you are and for what you've accomplished and stuff, as long as you are humble in your own sense and you're not the one that's sort of elevating yourself.
Mhm.
Like,
I've heard an argument before, and I've had this conversation several times about like should how it might be weird for someone to make a profit off of worship music because it's specifically, to worship the Lord. And so maybe we shouldn't be making money off of this. And I guess the same thing could be said about, I don't know, maybe pastors. Like, what do you think about that argument?
Yeah, I mean, that's everywhere. I mean, even books, anything that's sort of, you know, Christian ministry based, there's sort of that argument of, you shouldn't get an honorarium for this pastor coming to speak at this conference because it's for Jesus. And it's like, well, that's one thing, but like there's also a family to pay for, and it's easy for other people to want those to work for free. I think there's also a sense of like in the Bible, it talks about not necessarily monetary, but it talks about like, the disciples trying to find somewhere to stay. And it's like those that don't take you in, that kind of shake the dust off your sandals and go to the next house. And like a sense that there is sort of an obligation for the Christian community to kind of support those that are serving and doing that, like to support almost like a patron of ministry, the same way there might be of the arts and that's the part that doesn't always get brought up as much as I think. Yeah, I think there is some complications, like in how you think through like what is appropriate to like super rich pastors or something. It's like, is that appropriate? Is that biblical? I think probably not. But on the other side, I think there is in scripture a responsibility for the Christian community to help support those that are called to serve and to make sure they can eat and have a family and all that kind of stuff. But I do think, and I think that's sort of where the jelly roll thing is coming in, as far as like, yeah, that sounds, so you're just doing this for Jesus, but like you're also making $1 million on it. Like, there is sort of that kind of gray area of like, where do you sort of draw that line then? Like, is
Hmm.
this purely just all about Jesus, or is it like it's about Jesus, but I also want to take the money from it? And like my perspective is, if you're a successful musician, like you should make money. Like you're creating something good, you've earned that money. It's like I don't have any problem with that. But I
Hmm.
don't know. I think it just, for me, this whole conversation just sort of raises the question of sort of that tension between humility and excellence. And like,
Hmm.
is it, as Christians, do we need to like be ashamed to achieve stuff? And I think I would say no. And I think a lot of Christians have settled for less than excellence because we almost feel ashamed to like want to achieve things and want to celebrate things that are good. And I think there's plenty in scripture that would kind of make it more permissible to celebrate that. And at the same time, I think we got to be humble in that, and there is that built-in danger. And so I
Hmm.
guess my final takeaway is just, I'm glad that I have no problem with him setting those boundaries and those barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the one that has to deal with the fame and the success, and if this is going to help him stay humble, then I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I just I know in the video he kind of says he wants to be an example, that it's all about Jesus, and I think that's good. I just hope people don't take it as sort of some sort of law that like,
Hmm.
you know, to be a good Christian is to never be, if you win an award at school, you can't show up. If
Hmm.
if you get a promotion at work or something, or a banquet in your name, like it's sinful to go. Like, I just hope we don't take it sort of too far. Do you have any kind of final thought on that, or do you want?
No, I agree. And I think, like, it's also, I mean, him not going to the award ceremonies, I think that the other artists should be excited about that because that gives him a greater chance of winning, you know?
Well, I think he'll
Um,
still. My assumption is that he would still win. He just wouldn't.
okay. He
He
just
just
won't
wouldn't like
accept it.
be on stage.
Never mind.
Which
Sorry,
kinda goes back
guys.
to my, I feel like in some ways, there will be more attention about him than there
That's a
would
good point.
be, and again, that's
Yeah.
not up to me to decide, but I do think sort of the unintended consequence is that it will probably be,
Mhm.
someone else will pick up the award, and then there'll be all the headlines about, you know,
Mhm.
he wasn't there because he was, making Jesus first, and it sorta, he's gonna be elevated either way. That for me, I
Yeah.
think just go to the banquet and share. But that's what I would do. But hey, I'm not winning
Yeah.
musical awards. Kind of the other thing that I wanted us to get into for this episode is, because it's something that we have both watched through, kind of a buzzworthy new show, a YouTube drama, free to watch. So if anyone
A
hasn't,
YouTube comedy,
YouTube
not drama.
and that is that is the kick, the comedy. So the Promised
Yes.
Land is a new YouTube series from the writer director Mitch Hudson, who is a assistant director for the mega hit show The Chosen, and it is in fact a comedy. Why don't you set the stage for this one too? Like, this is something that we have both watched. The first, I think we both have. You watched the 3 episodes that are
I
whatever
have.
these?
I
Yeah. So as
have.
time of recording, I think there'll be a new episode before before
Mhm.
our episode drops. But maybe for those that aren't familiar, maybe just set the stage a bit. Like, what is the Promised
Yeah.
Land?
For sure. Yeah, I've watched through the first 3 episodes twice already, and it'll probably be a third time, just showing, like, my family and everything. But it is a show, the pitch is Moses, but in the style of The Office. So it is a mockumentary, it takes place I think it starts right after the Israelites are, they have crossed the Red Sea, and they're heading to the promised land. And so we get to meet Joshua, we get to meet Aaron and see just the comedic personalities of that time period, you know, just how Mitch Hudson has imagined these characters and really humanized them and shown what their personalities possibly could have been. So yeah, what did you think of the first 3 episodes, Daniel?
Yeah, so I have my review when our podcast episode drops. My review will be out, so I encourage people to go check out my full review. And we actually had the chance. I was able to talk to Mitch Hudson, interview him about sort of this show, which was exciting to me because I think the fact that this is a comedy was super intriguing to me. Like,
Mhm.
because as someone that like reviews most of like the faith-based stuff and like has to watch the good ones, has to watch the not as good ones, like there's just no comedy like at all in sort of faith-based stuff. At least no good comedy in like we got, because like so much talk about like the golden age of faith-based. You know, we have The Chosen, we have the House of David as the big drama, we have all these you know, we have studios like Angel Studios, or you know, the Wonder Project, and all these things that are emerging. Like, I mean, there's just tons. You know, it used to be you get like Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, and then it's like you gotta wait like 3 years for another big
Mhm.
faith. But now it's like every month there's new faith-based stuff, but like none of it's comedy. Like none of it. You got like the inspirational family dramas. You have the biopics of like a famous Christian saint. You have the like direct Bible adaptation, like The Chosen or The House of David. But you just don't have comedy. And like, and some of in the interview, Mitch gets into a bit of why he thinks Christians just haven't sort of stepped into into the comedy space. And so it was intriguing to me, and especially taking a comedic approach to like scripture, I think is interesting to me. I think potentially controversial for some people.
Mhm.
Sort of what you do with comedy. I think I like the show. Um, Especially, I really like the first 2 episodes. I will admit that I'm already kind of finding the like the gimmick of it to like start feeling a bit tired. Like the and like I was never a big. I've just never watched The Office. Like
Yeah.
the clips come on my social media all the time. I always watch them. I always think they're funny. I've just never actually sat down and watched through seasons of The Office. Like, even though I know I'll probably think it's hilarious because I think all the clips I see are super funny. So maybe it's just not as much in my wheelhouse, but I
Well,
don't know.
Mitch even talked about how like their demographic was 18 to 24. You know, it's college students, which I'm 24, so I think it
You're
makes
calling
sense
me
to
old
that.
is what you're doing. Is you're
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
I'm
Sorry, millennial. Sorry.
yeah, I'm an old millennial like me. Um, I don't know. I think it has a lot of potential.
Mhm.
I wasn't. I didn't enjoy the 3rd episode as much as I did the first 2.
That was my favorite one.
Really?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel. I don't know. So there's a lot to get into because but maybe try. What is it about the show um, that you have enjoyed? Because we'll get into some of this sort of the comedy and the genre. But as far as this sort of this show, like, what is it that you have kind of resonated with in it?
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's similar to Parks and Rec and to The Office, which are like I like Parks and Rec better, I will be honest. And so just having another show in that style released while I can watch it being released live is really, really cool for me. And also, I think they do a really incredible job. I think their strength is being able to balance the serious moments and the more comedic moments. Like, the third episode is spoiler alert, sorry. The third episode is about when Moses goes up onto the mountain to get the tablets with God's law on it, and Joshua goes with him. And so Aaron is left to kind of run the camp and everything, and he, of course, ends up making the golden calf for everyone. And so seeing that from Aaron's perspective and like all of the comedic moments, all of the arguments that led up to that was really cool. Seeing just the comedy of even what the golden calf looked like, and there's a character in there who's not an Israelite, and he's the only one that's like sane about it. And then when Moses comes, like you can feel the comedic high just come to crashing down, and everyone is like, "Oh no, we messed up." And Aaron being able to have that moment where he's like, I think it's what he says, it's word for word from the Bible, where he's like, "These people are evil. They made me do this. I just threw the gold in and the calf came out. So it's still comedic. Like, it's literally what Aaron said, but it's also like a really, really serious moment. So I think I'm just impressed with their ability to
Yeah,
do
because it
that,
really is,
you know?
because like my review, I wrote my review based on the first 2 episodes, which were the 2 that were out at the time. And the first 2 episodes don't get serious. Like, there's like life lessons sort of at the end. They have their teaching moment of, Moses learns to delegate, or, Aaron learns that he needs to, he needs to rely on Moses so that he has a place, or they sort of have those moments at the end of the first 2. The third episode is the first one that I think tries to balance the more serious stuff, which, and I think they do it fairly well. Like, I think, like you said, I think the Egyptian perspective, and I was sort of curious how much they would, because I think they need to. Like, I think the comedy is what's going to sell the show. I think you do need a little bit of sort of the, not like super serious, but like a bit more of the drama, like the weight behind it, in order for you to sort of understand the characters more. And like, so it's not just purely sort of junk food of like, you get some laughs, and it's sort of like a SNL sketch, and it's sort of, I
Hmm.
think for it to be more than that, I think they need to sprinkle in some of these sort of
And it's
more.
really interesting seeing like these huge biblical heroes in a way, like be idiots, and still realize that God loved these people so much and he saved them and brought them out of the promised land. Like, that, I think, it's really personal for anyone who can watch it and who wants that relationship with God or has that relationship. It's just a really good reminder of like, we are idiots and we're sinners, but God is still loves us as much as he does.
Yeah, and that was sort of the pitch, right? And we'll link the interview with Mitch in the description, show notes. But he sort of says the way he balanced that is like, God is holy, the Bible's sacred, but like, people are not holy. Like, people are imperfect. People make mistakes. Like, we can make fun of people. I think what Mitch says, like, we can make fun of people because like we are people. Like, it's sort of an inside joke that like they're making the same dumb mistakes that we're making today. And like, there's humor in that, but there's also something I think convicting about, we're encouraged that like they mess up, but we're also, I think, able to learn from some of those mistakes. And I just think like, for me, like, I'm rooting for this show because I think there is such power in comedy that we haven't tapped into. Like, I know there are like Christian comedians that are pretty good. I remember when I was in seminary, I did Christianity in the arts, and like I brought up the fact of like a Christian comedian, to my one of my professors, and like I might as well have told her that like I was building a golden calf, in my church. Like, she just could not. She's an older lady. She's I think she was German or from Europe. Actually, very kind of serious, solemn, like wonderful lady, great teacher, very knowledgeable, all that kind of stuff. But like, she was so struck by like comedy and the faith and Christianity that like we had to like stop class so she could go like compose herself of the sacrilege that I
Oh
had
no.
brought up. And I do think there is sort of that sense that like, because the Bible, it's one thing to sort of make fun of, I don't know, like just people as a Christian, or even church people, like another some comedians that have sort of poked fun at like church life, or even like the Babylon Bee, which has become more kind of political, but like it its roots were making fun of like church culture and like sort of that church world, and because there is so much kind of fun to poke fun of for that. I think directing some of that humor towards the Bible, I think gets people a little queasy as far as like, well, but like when it comes to scripture and when it comes to this, like we gotta be so serious. But I just think like comedy it just gives you a different perspective on like it. I think it disarms people. Like it kind of gets past some of the defenses, and like, I think that's why y- like late night television talk show hosts, like you can kind of see the rise and fall of their like relevance of like, I think they used to be super relevant because they could essentially make, whether it's political or cultural or social, like they could make, you know, commentary on culture and politics, but through the lens of humor, which was so much more effective than just having like some politician at a podium just lecturing people about what to do. And I think you've sort of seen some like, with Colbert off the air and some of these guys starting to lose their relevance. I think because you've sort of seen they've lost the comedy part. Like it's become more about just sort of having an influence, telling people what to do in the absence of comedy, which just
Mhm.
takes away some of like the power of why they were effective. And I just think as Christians, there's a lot to learn from that. Like I think we've always sort of gone more to like, well, when it comes to truth though, you got to give that straight. Laugh about the stuff over there, but like when it comes to truth, like we got to be serious. This is the Bible. This is God. And like I think there is a sense that we need to not make light of God, and I think the Promised Land show is going to have to do that dance a little bit, as far as
Mhm.
there are places that I think you can make a joke. Some places I think you don't want to necessarily make light of things that
Mhm.
the Bible doesn't make light of, or but I think there is sort of a sense that comedy can give you a different perspective on the biblical passage. It can kind of get through some of your defenses and just help you see it fresh. Because I don't know, because that been your experience with this? Like, I know I've just like thinking through like the Exodus story, and from the perspective of sort of this show and the comedy and the people, like I don't know, it's making me see. It's not making me think less of scripture, I guess, is what I'm
Mm-mm.
trying to say. Like it's more just sort of seeing it from a different angle. And
Yeah,
I
it's a fresh perspective
and I
for
think,
sure.
yeah, I think there is power in that. And even just the fact that this is a YouTube show, like you sort of said, being able to watch it, and like I don't know, to me, I kind of asked Mitch about that, and I didn't know how to like. I was trying to see, like, is this just because you couldn't get anyone to release it, or like you had to go to
Oh.
YouTube, or like because no one wanted to take it, or like was it intentional? And
Mhm.
he didn't necessarily. He kind of danced around that question a bit, but I think the benefit is like, for me, it's just an interesting release model too. Of like, this is a show that is not crowd funded, but it's on YouTube. It's accessible to everyone. It's in sort of a format that people are familiar with from like other secular or like mainstream shows.
Mhm.
And I think at times it's like legitimately funny, to the point that I don't know. I'm curious. I don't know. You probably haven't watched it with anyone that's like not a believer. Like a lot
Mm-mm.
of the humor is still based on. I just would be curious what a
I don't
non-Christian thought.
know. Yeah, I don't know if I
Like
agree with that.
it's like some of the jokes are legitimately funny, and some
Mhm.
are like all the stuff with Miriam being like a woman in a patriarchal society. Like I
Yeah.
feel like that translates very easily to, but there is a lot of like inside, like you sort of know this character,
Yeah.
or the customs, and I would be curious what the response has been from people that like don't have
Yeah.
biblical background.
Like if you've never ever heard of Moses, is it gonna be as funny as it is if you're very familiar with his Exodus, you know? I don't know. I think yeah, that's a good question. Maybe we should poll people. If you're not a believer, let us know what you think of the show.
Yeah, because there are some like deep cuts of like
Yeah.
biblical stuff that like, oh, that's clever. I don't think most people, unless you have like degrees in seminary or something, are probably gonna catch that. But I do think there's enough of just like accessible. this
Mhm.
is funny because, like Moses being jealous that everyone loves Aaron and, like, thinks he's funny and
And
Moses
Aaron's
doesn't.
well puns.
Yeah, like some of those things that it's like that's relatable and funny,
Yeah.
for anyone. Like you don't need to know the Bible to know like when Moses tries to tell a joke and no one laughs, and then Aaron tells a joke and like everyone's just dying laughing, and it's like some of those very human things. But I don't know. I think they're. I'm hoping that this show, again, like I said, I've liked what I've watched. I I have a hard time imagining like 40 episodes or whatever the goal for like
That's a lot.
like I think the concept is funny, but I think the concept like there's only so many times for me at least that like having the character kind of deadpan look at the camera, like that's funny in doses, like but to me there's only so many times that that's funny, like so I'm curious, will this show still be funny in episode 25? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. It could be. I hope it is. Um, but I think regardless, just the fact that it is a fresh perspective, kind of
Yeah.
faith-based stuff, to me makes it a valuable thing. Like I think
Yeah.
this is
I'm really excited to see how they handle like Joshua and Caleb being the only two that are saying that they can go into the promised land because God's with them. That's what I'm really excited to see. Cause yeah, we just got introduced to Caleb, and so it's just interesting seeing like even how the characters are developing their relationships in the story too. I don't know, but I agree with you. 40, I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna get to 40.
which I
Um,
mean, like The Office and stuff, like those shows had like 9 seasons, or I think
oh
Parks and Rec
yeah.
had like seven. Like, they can definitely do it. It's just going to depend on the characters
Mhm.
because I think some of the template and the humor you can only kind of go so far with. So I don't know. I don't know if like this show itself will become some big thing, but I just like the direction of like, hey, you know what? Christians can use comedy. Like comedy is super effective. I think it's like
Mhm.
redemptive, like just making people laugh, making people process things through the lens of humor. I
Yeah.
think there's so much to it that I hope this show, like if nothing else, at least just sort of lets Christian creatives know like there's an audience for of Christians that want to see funny stuff. That's not just, this is going to make you cry and be inspired to, go live like this saint or,
It's tiring. It's
like,
exhausting.
like there's just only so much of that I can handle, even because even like a lot of these new, like the Wonder Project or different streaming platforms, like that are gonna like house all these shows together. Part of me is like, well, like I just don't know how much of an appetite I have for like a streaming platform filled with serious dramas. Like, like because there hasn't been much different genres and stuff within
Mhm.
the entertainment world for faith based. Like as I think or fiction or other stuff, like it's just so much of just sort of serious inspirational dramas. Like I'm all for being inspired by a drama, but I don't necessarily want to just like every night pick a new tear-jerking drama about this character who
Yeah.
overcame, serious problems to become a Christian. Like, I think we need comedy, we need to explore, and I think this show is sort of going to lead the way. So I'm looking forward to it. I think I will. I mean, they actually sent me all the episodes, so we probably will watch through all of
Oh,
them.
nice.
So maybe we'll do on the podcast. Maybe we'll do like a we'll check in from time to time on how this show is going. But speaking
Yeah.
of things that are also redemptive and some would say comedic, or at times they can be quite serious drama, we do have the final segment of this podcast episode, which is things we like that you should like too. So this is my week to share something that I think everyone should like because I personally like it. And this week I thought not necessarily going to share like a single thing. I'm going to reach be a bit more ambitious and speak more broadly to just live performances. Um, it's one of those things that is inspired by two things because like a week or
This
so
is
ago,
a wide net.
yeah,
Every live
go see,
performance.
turn off the computer and go see a human on a stage doing something because that is redemptive. So I went. My wife had a birthday a week or so ago, week and a half, and so we went to see. There's a place where we live in Atlanta, the Shakespeare Tavern, which is like a kind of like a dinner theater. You get your food, you sit at a table, and then it's not like a very elaborate. They don't have like a bunch of like moving stages or anything. It's just like a stage, kind of stripped down, but really good. We saw Macbeth. Great, lots of good violence and drama and angst and all that good stuff. But just so fun to see like just the intimacy of like real life people and like performing and this sort of the interaction and as opposed to like just watching everything on the screen. And then on this last weekend, as the good father that I am, I took my two sons to go see an European power metal concert. It's one of my son's first concert. The other one had been to one metal concert already, and I mean it was awesome. I mean it was power metal from like Scotland, so of course it was awesome. But just the just the experience of like like I'd never seen this band live before, but we've listened to the music for like years together, and like it's awesome. And but
Do
just
they sing in an accent?
uh, they do have a little bit of an accent, but
Okay.
it's very like theatrical, and of course they're like in costumes. It's just glorious stuff. It's wonderful.
It's
You know,
glory hammering.
yeah, their name is Glory Hammer, so it's
Oh,
glorious.
yeah.
But just sort of that having the whole crowd, like cheer and sing and all this stuff that's going on. Like I don't know, it's just for me. And again, I'm an introvert. I don't necessarily always want to go out onto the town and go to places. Like I like to be at home and my own comfort and quiet. But just to I don't know, I think it seems like these days we almost have to be, like, more intentional to, like because it's so much easier to, like, get access to stuff, like, we can watch sports on our TV, on our phone, while we're going to the bathroom. We don't need to go pay $200 to go see a sports event or, we can listen to our music anywhere we go with our Bluetooth
Mhm.
headphones, like, we don't necessarily need to go see step out of our house to go be around people, and I don't know, so those 2 experiences for me just reminded me that like live theater stuff is just awesome, whether it's European
Yeah.
metal concerts or Shakespearean acting or something in between. I'm all for live theater. But another thing I am all for is doing this podcast because there's always a lot of fun stuff to do. Appreciate you, Naya, stepping in to get this check off your first episode, get that out of the way. But looking forward because there's gonna be a lot of stuff. There's always interesting stuff every week. I'm looking forward to getting your perspective on that and just digging in. I think like what me and Sam always said, and whether we have the answers or not, it's just healthy as Christians to have the conversations and ask questions and at least be intentional to be aware and sort of step into those conversations. And so I have no doubt that there will be even more to talk about next week. But until then, every Thursday we'll see you again for more conversations on faith and pop culture.